Is this thing working? Is this thing on? It looks like it's working, and it looks like it's working pretty good. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. So, in this video, I kind of want to do a bit of a dress rehearsal with you guys. I'm going to be putting together a standalone video on what is, in essence, the middleweight class of motorcycle versus the leader class of motorcycle. And we can be talking anything from, say, sport nakeds. We could be talking about sport bikes, which is usually where people will go with this. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about was how I'm trying to put this video together. And again, I always use the live show to bounce ideas off of you guys. But what type of bike do you guys prefer? And what's your favorite middleweight or leader class bike? What drew you to that machine? The reason why I'm asking this is because I just got through riding the GSXR 750. Happy 40th birthday to that machine. And I gotta say, it got me to thinking quite a bit. And so then I rode my GSXR 1000 today. And it's not like I fell in love with it all over again. While I was riding my GSXR 1000 versus the GSXR 750, which, mind you, that's the bike that I have the most experience with in my career in riding, I got to tell you, I can make a very strong case for the 750 being the superior bike all the way around. Just don't compare it to a leader bike. And so that's where I'm at right now with trying to put this video together. And anyway, it's going to work try to work in some interaction with you guys here tonight. This might end up being the video. Anyway, if you're new to the channel, guys, welcome. This is more or less just a background noise generator. I'm usually talking about all things powered by gasoline. So anyway, that gives you a heads up. Not a lot of cuts or anything like that. It's a long form. So typically people will have this on in the background, just kind of making noise while they're doing something just slightly less boring than this. So anyway, let me dive into you guys first in skids. Got the ball guy with the glasses and the flex. I like it. DM caught it too. What's up, brothers? So, gents, I got to tell y'all something. This is on me a little bit. I've been perplexed. The idea of getting rid of my GSXR 1000 for a GSXR 750 doesn't really, that would not work. That's just, I rode that thing today, and there is something about my 1000 that the 750 just doesn't have, and that's stability. It's a longer bike. It is a more stable platform. And for the type of riding that I like to do, it is perfect in its execution, if not flawed by a little bit of a too stiff suspension. I'm working with this, but you get the idea. It's for the type of riding I do, the 1000 is better. But that doesn't mean that it's a better bike. And matter of fact, it doesn't mean that it's a smarter play either. Because you got to look at it like this. The 750 that I rode, I almost didn't want to bring that bike back. To the point where if that bike would have been blue and white, I may have done something dumb and brought the 750 home. Not because I would want to modify it, not because I would want to do really much of anything to it other than maybe put a M4 slip on it, leave everything else stock, put a filter in it, and put a tune on it. And that's it. The thing is that that bike was so good at just being motorcycle, okay? From a ergonomics point of view, at least in terms of foot position and arm reach, you can feel the fact that the 750 is smaller, but the actual rider triangle doesn't feel that much different. So for me, it became more about how does the bike feel? Is it flickable? What is it like to ride? What's the sound of the thing? And if you watch that GSXR 750 video, I'm not kidding when I tell you that it had all the theater, all of the fun, all of everything that I remember the GSXR 750 having. And I gotta say, it's very smooth going down the highway, smoother than the GSX-R 1000 because it has a little bit more compliant. This is something that I didn't mention in the video, but the suspension, it uses a softer spring pack. And so it's not quite as jarring and it's not quite as stiff as the 1000. The 1000 needs the stiffer spring pack though, because you're carrying a ton of speed through sweepers. And so, yeah, you're going to want to have that better spring pack. I guess the point that I'm trying to get to you guys is this. If the GSX-R 1000 didn't catch my eye the way that it did, and if that blue GSX-R 750 would have been in the showroom at the time that I was looking at the GSX-R 1000, I have a weird feeling I would have brought the 750 home, especially after riding it. So anyway, I wanted to catch up with you guys, get y'all's feedback on this. What do y'all prefer? And would you consider, if you have a leader class bike, dropping back down into like a 750, or would you consider, if you have a 750, are you considering moving up into a leader bike? So what I want to give in this respect, because I've recently ridden both motorcycles, are my initial take on both bikes. Keeping in mind that, yes, my GSX-R 1000 is modified, that has nothing to do with what I'm going to be talking about, because say what you will about the Gixxer Thau stock or modified, it is still orders of magnitude more powerful than the 750. And to put it to you another way, if you look at it from just horsepower, stock for stock even, looking at it from the point of view of the GSX-R 750, the GSX-R 1000 is 30% more powerful, but it's also 33% more displacement. You see what I mean? So it's kind of height weight proportionate when you start to look at displacement versus total power output. Start to mix in some gearing qualifiers and things like that, which I can absolutely bring up here on the live show, just to show, I even did spreadsheets because of course I did on this. And you find out pretty quickly that, man, they're both very good value per dollar. So it's not really a power play. We already know which bike's going to be more powerful, but what are they like to ride? And is the GSX-R 1000 worth the extra 25 or 30% that you have to pay for, the extra 25 to 30, really it's 33% more displacement and power that you get? And I'm not really so sure. So, Itch is in. What's up, Itch? So here's where I'm coming from with this. The GSX-R 750, because I have so much experience with it, I know coming into this conversation that it can be a bit twitchy. There are times, and I don't even mention it because I kid you not, guys, this kind of stuff does not bother me enough to even mention. It doesn't even cross my mind when I'm riding these bikes. The GSX-R 750, at the power level that it is, at the wheelbase that it has, which is the same wheelbase as the 600, you will notice a little bit of a head shake. In fact, if you watch the video, there's a couple of times where I'm getting on it on that bike, and I'm not really hammering on it, but I'm getting on it pretty good, where you might catch it or you might hear the RPM waver a little bit. That was the bike actually losing traction a couple of times. That's a brand new tire on the back of that bike. And I knew that I couldn't get away with a whole lot, but I could play with it. And there's one time, especially where I'm making a U-turn and I'm getting back onto the freeway, you'll hear it. You'll hear the tack flutter pretty good. I think it's in second gear. I had actually whacked the throttle pretty hard, and I was planning on carrying the front tire a little bit, but it actually spun a little bit. That's really not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about, guys, be careful with new tires. But the very first time where I get on it on that bike, you might see a little bit of a head shake out of it. It's just what that motorcycle does at that power level. And you can amplify that a little bit if you drop a tooth up front, or a little bit even more if you drop a tooth up front and then go up a tooth or two out back. So, and I just know that from racing that bike, but I'm so used to it. You got to remember, I've been doing this for a long time. I have very soft hands on the handlebars. That handlebar can get all kinds of nutty, and I can maintain throttle control and brake awareness. It's not going to affect me. So I apologize for never even mentioning it. It's because I've been doing it for so long, I don't even pick up on it. Or I know what it's doing. I'm just not maybe mentioning it because it doesn't bother me. It's the last thing that's going to bug me about a bike is a head shake in between gear shifts or something like that. Because the bike will literally correct itself. The worst thing you can do in that case is freak out and get a hold of it. And one of the best things you can do is just let it kind of do its thing. I'm literally looking where I'm going. I'm not even thinking about it. So anyway, boy, I talk about killing that point, right? Anyway, the point that I'm getting to is that the 750, because of the power level, and it does like to carry that front tire a lot like the Gixxer Thou in this respect, but it never really settles down until you're on the highway and just kind of chilling. The 750 can be a little bit frantic, where the 1000cc, it's got a longer wheelbase. The weight difference, guys, it's not that much. You could, for lack of a better way of putting it, you've got a 20-pound difference between the two bikes. It's negligible. It's 5%. There's not enough there. Where the 1000cc bike, though, becomes a bit taxing is at longer ride. It's on longer rides with that stiffer rear shock. You've got to loosen that thing up on the 1000 just to chill it out so that it doesn't like try to jam the motorcycle through your kidneys. But on a track, that setup is really good. And so, you can actually stiffen it up a little bit from that point, depending on the track. But for the street, the 1000 needs to be softened up. The 750 is aces right out of the hole. I would not touch anything on that suspension except for maybe rear preload. I would probably make sure that it's set somewhere around a 35 or 37 sag. You can get away with a little bit more sag on the smaller bikes and just let her eat. Matter of fact, it's kind of funny, and I meant to do this and I didn't. Don't ask me how I came across this. I've got a slacker though. And if you're not aware of what this is, it's a device that allows you to check your rear sag super easy. And anyway, I meant to bring this with me, and I'm going to do this at some point. I'm going to get the front and rear sag on one of the Gixxer 750 just to see where it sits. And so anyway, kind of one of those weird things where, yeah, I'm kind of that guy. Listen, when I bought my Hellcat, guys, I data logged the car with the sales guy and my wife riding along. So anyway, the guy had never seen anything like that. And smoking hot, just, I told her, we're going to data log this thing. She's like, all right, cool. So yeah, the weird things. Anyway, nerd. And so to keep from belaying the point too much, the 750, when I was riding it, one of the things that just immediately drew me to that bike, and this has taken all of my pre-baked into the cake bias out of this, is just how much theater comes along with that bike from the factory. Guys, when it comes to the sound, that induction sound, how that stock exhaust sounds, the 750 is way better than the GSXR 1000 in terms of that aspect of the ride. So just keeping tabs here, it's got a more compliant suspension, better for the street. It's got a better soundtrack. And in terms of ergonomics, where your feet sit, where your hands sit, how the bike feels underneath you, they're both very similar in that respect. So far, all compasses are pointing towards the GSX-R 750 being the overall better pick, as long as power and level of experience and where you're going to be riding these bikes doesn't take you into, well, you're going to be riding the bike hard, or you are used to a 750 and you want to move up into 1,000 because you want just a lot more power. If you're not really a size queen when it comes to power and you want something that is just going to be real lively, then the Gixxer 750 is really the only way to go. And I've got to say this. I mean, all that being said, I mean, it sounds like I'm leaning heavily towards the GSX-R 750, but here's a problem. I rode my GSX-R 1000 today, and I can't tell you how much richer that bike feels to ride. Yes, I get it. It's modified and all that, but even stock, it's hard for me to describe to you guys how much more of a rich riding experience the 1000 can be, just from grabbing throttle, twisting it, torque, production, and thrust. I mean, the 1000 is just so strong. I mean, I'll put it to you like this. The only way I can describe the GSX-R 1000 versus a GSX-R 750 is like this. If you can imagine the GSX-R 750 being the stereotypical quintessential four-cylinder, in that you're not expecting a whole lot of torque, you know that you're going to be cruising on the highway at higher RPM, and there's a top end rush that's associated with the power plant and all of that. That is four-cylinder bliss, is the 750. The 1000cc bike, the only way I can think of to describe this thing is, well, it makes torque by comparison like a V-twin. Like, if you can imagine the initial hit, if a 750 was a V-twin, that wham, that initial really hard hit of torque, but this thing just keeps carrying power forever. It's hard to really boil it down. And this is actually something that I had a hard time with my GSX-R 750 ride-along video, because what I started to say in that video is, and I think I say it like this, I'll even go out on a limb and say that if you are coming from a smaller displacement bike, or like a GSX 8R, the bike that hit me first was the GSX 8R. And there's not enough time for me to really elaborate on the point in those types of videos. But the point that I was making is that 776cc engine, that parallel twin, has an initial torque hit that makes it feel like it's about 950 cc's. Now, as weird as it sounds, they're in essence the same displacement. I'll give you 20 cc's for being a parallel twin. Okay. It's the same displacement, but the character is so different from a riding perspective. Well, the 750, because of the gearing of it, you get that initial torque hit that you get out of the 776 and the 8R. It's just not pronounced as a twin will give it, because you can sense that you get the bang, bang, bang out of the twin, where the 750 is just a lot smoother. But you've got the gearing to go along with the RPM, and so it's all there. It's just delivered in a different way. And I know that some guys, when you get used to riding a parallel twin, it's kind of an addictive riding experience, because a parallel twin, or P2, they have that initial really hard torque hit that you just kind of ride that wave under partial throttle the entire time you're riding the thing. And you don't really ever notice that it fades power much more quickly as you increase in RPM, because you're just not railing on the thing. And so if you're graduating up, the 750 is a great place to land, because you get all of the charm and all of the quintessential four-cylindery goodness, and you still get to retain the torque that you had with your parallel twin coming into it. So that's what I wanted to say coming into that conversation. But damn, I just, I was pulling into the parking lot. I was wrapping up the video, and I don't know. That's the only time in that video where I was like, crap. I know I could have redone that a little bit better, but it's good. It's good. And we're going to let it ride. So, I think that for me, you can make such a solid case for the middleweights that it almost seems to make the leader class bikes look a little bit, I'm not going to say underachieving, but it makes them look like too big of a portion on your plate. What I'll say this about that, how do I say it? I'll say this about the leader bikes, and I've said this before, but it bears repeating. The leader class bikes normalize and make mundane actions that most people, motorcyclists included, would find to be absolutely crazy. Let me put it to you like this. I just rode my bike today, and while I was riding it, if you watch the video, just look at the RPM, look at the speed, and you can hear in my voice, there's no stress. This is as normal as up and down the road, just riding them, doing nothing. Watch those levels of speed. There is no effort whatsoever in collecting that mile an hour. There's nothing spooky. There's nothing weird. There's nothing that would insinuate instability at those speeds with that leader bike. And when you start seeing numbers that go 125, 135, 145, I'm not even sure what numbers I got on that video. I'm not ever really getting on that bike. So, but I can tell you, I'm either short shifting it, I'm not wide open, I'm maybe hanging it at about 85, 80% throttle. I'm not beating on the bike that hard, but yet you'll see just how that bike will collect mile an hour. And the 750 wide open, full tuck, just absolutely going for it, would just be absolutely sent into the back half of the horizon if you're looking at it from behind you. You're looking at that bike in the mirror. It's not even close. And that's both the positive and the negative of a leader bike, is that how do I, it is so normal for me to do those types of things with a leader bike that when you get onto a smaller bike like a GSXR 750, it is so much more exciting because there's so much more communication. The chassis, shorter wheelbase, it's livelier with a little bit more aggressive gearing. There's a lot going on, more communication through the bars. That's what makes the middleweights so good, but can also make him feel a bit more skittish, where the 1000cc bike, it can be it's not numb. It's just so stable and so good at what it's doing that, it kind of begs the question, is it too good at that stage? I shouldn't be this comfortable running at those kinds of speeds. And guys, there's times I'll cruise at those kinds of speeds with that bike. So it is different. It is definitely different. But let me check in with you guys real quickly. Let's see. Oh, Skid's saying if I'm snagging a middleweight naked, I'm leaning MT-09. It may be the ultimate do everything motorcycle, the SP version. So the MT-09, let me just tell you this, man. MT-09 is what's the price on an MT-09 right now? Because the reason why I ask, hang on, let me pull this up. MT-09 SP. This is gonna. Okay, MT-09 SP 12,299. So $12,300. Here's the problem with $12,300. The Hornet 1000 is $11,999. And it's 150 horsepower. Oh, and that's for the SP version of the Hornet. Yeah, that's the problem. Oh, and that's the other thing. Is a 900cc motorcycle a middleweight? So I chose this is the other thing. I chose the thumbnail for this video. That's a Z1 and that's a 900, which back in the day would have been considered a big bore bike. That Z1 came out right on the heels of the CB750 from Honda way back in the day. And if you think about it, it's kind of where we're at today with the middleweight, or at least the 750 versus the 1000, because none of the middleweights, I'm thinking right now, there's not one middleweight that makes anywhere near the horsepower that the GSXR 750 does. And all of those middleweights, because they're 900 cc's, they're all making about 68, 60, maybe 69 to like 72 pound-feet of torque. And 72 would be a healthy one. They're more torque than the 750, but not far and away more. And you wouldn't expect that to be far and away more anyway, because the displacement difference isn't all that great. But none of them are going to be able to get you the kind of power or power to weight ratio per dollar that that 750 can give. So, you know, the not so super middleweights. And again, if you saw the GSXR 750 video, there's a point where I even bring up, I even say, I'm looking at you, R9. It's one of those things where you just go, yeah, the GSXR 750 lives in such a bubble that it doesn't have any real competition. And the competition that it does have is way behind the 8-ball when it comes to outright power. Now, I'll also say this. You could say, well, you could re-gear, or you can retune, or you can do whatever to the super middleweight. That's true. But let me also remind you that that's basically part and parcel to Gixxer life, is that it's tuned, maybe piped, probably re-geared, and you got all this RPM to play with. So again, it's one of those weird scenarios where you have something along the lines of, you know, $13,000 to play with. That's where you're going to fall in line with all these middleweights. And well, the ones that are really worth talking about, the V2 Panigale it's priced itself so far out of the conversation. And it looks like the KTM RCR 990 is going to do the same. So what can you do about that? But yeah, it's just one of those things where, you know, people talk about like the MT-09. MT-09 has been the best street bike that you could spend money on now for a good amount of time. But now that fashions are starting to change a little bit, and you've got other manufacturers that are starting to creep into this middleweight class with sport bikes, but that are based on the sport naked counterpart. The Gixxer 750 was never a sport naked, ever. So because of that, I mean, you already have a leg up when it comes to performance, not to mention that chassis been paid for probably the last 8 years. So maybe time for an update in a couple of ways with that bike, but God, such a good machine. I just would hate to. That's one of those things where you don't screwing with the recipe on that bike. I don't know that it's the best idea. Anyway, these newer bikes, when it comes to pricing, they're way too expensive, and we don't have any other middleweight sport. I'm trying to think of middleweight, fully fared sport bike that could really hold its own against the Gixxer 750, except for the ZX6R. And that's it for bikes that are made today. So maybe I'm forgetting something. Yamaha, no. Honda, no. Kawasaki, mentioned the 6R. Triumph, no. No, except the 765 Moto 2 making 130 horsepower would have been close. It's just that the Street Triple, I know what kind of power it makes, and I know what the displacement is, but it's weird. That motorcycle, it's so frustrating. That bike is made for mid-range. The tune on that motorcycle is nothing but mid-range. I know for a fact, though, that engine combination is sinister with a tune and an exhaust. But I don't know that it gets to GSXR 750 power levels, outright power levels, but it's pretty badass through the mid-range. But anyway, I guess that's pretty much the point here, right, for this chat. It's more, my opportunity to walk some of these ideas by you guys as more of a dress rehearsal. And when I put the standalone video together, it helps me to walk through the chat, so to speak, and try to center on just a few points. And it's so hard to do, though, for this topic because it's so good in one respect, be it middleweight or leader bike, but it also has its drawbacks. And it's like with the leader class, its blessings are its curse. And the same goes for the middleweights. So it's just kind of weird. There's not a clear-cut winner. And it's because there's not a clear-cut winner that it kind of makes the chat, it keeps the conversation alive, I guess, is a better way to put it. Let's see. Check in with you guys. Let's see. If I can scroll back up here, visit with you guys. I'm going to check out here in just a minute. Oh, damn. Sovereign had a radiator issue with the car. That sucks. Yeah, I thought I was going to have, talking about radiators and having issues. I had there for, what was it? Like there over the course of 3 months, I had the radiator in the Hellcat go bad and the radiator in Buffy go bad. And they both had the same problem. They started leaking from the side tanks. So it was so weird though, because within just such a short amount of time, I had both of them fail. It's just one of the weirder things. Why do they use plastic end caps or plastic anywhere on a radiator? I'll never know. Damn. Well, at least you got it taken care of, Sovereign. That's the most important thing. But yeah, I had, and you know what's weird? I saw mine at a track rental, but I didn't. And it just, I noticed it in the reservoir was a little bit low, but I didn't see any leaks. But yeah, no, Buffy was a definite, you could tell it was leaking when it went. So But yeah, plastic radiator parts, man, you got to be kidding me. Ended up replacing the radiator in the Hellcat with a Moto. Yeah, saying the plastic is brittle. On mine, because you have the end cap and then the aluminum crimps around it. The crimps got weak, and so the cap, the end cap, just kind of faded off of it a little bit. It's kind of weird. But yeah, that sucks. I mean, that's never fun to have to deal with something like that. Oh yeah, and then Smoking Hot Wife's Jeep radiator failed, but that was about a 2 year ago. 2 years prior to the other radiators going. And then this is kind of funny. So I have the worst luck, by the way, with cooling systems. So since I've been doing the show, I've had to replace a radiator on pretty much everything. So I had to replace Foxy's radiator. I had to replace Sierra's radiator. I had to replace Revlon's radiator. I had to replace Smoking Hot's radiator. And then I had to replace the water pump in Buffy. I had to replace the water pump in the Camaro. And I've got weeping seals with the Fox body because, of course, I do at the timing cover because they all do. I think they all weep from the factory. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, my experience with cooling systems sucks. And Skids is checking out, and I'm going to follow suit. Guys, listen, happy Easter, everybody. Get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it more than you know. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me tonight, helping me work through putting that GSXR 750 or middleweight versus leader class motorcycle video. I will at some point video that thing up. But until then, guys, hope to see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.